Amazing. Well, I guess I'll kick us off. Sophia, how are you?
Exciting. It's exciting. I'm excited to chat to you.
I know, me too. I feel like we can let the world into our conversations that we usually have.
That we have at the clubhouse.
Yeah. Talking about all things talent acquisition.
I know we're boring. I don't think we actually talked personal for probably like a whole year. It was just
No, it was just strategy, me learning from you,
me
being
learning
part
from
of a lot
you.
of the great work that you've done.
No, me learning from you, trying to find you
Huh.
in Miami, trying to go to all your women's conferences and me being like, oh, I can't make it tonight.
So for everyone who's hopping on, Sophia and I actually worked together. And when I first met Sophia, I'm still in Miami. I was living in Miami, and Sophia was coming here, and I was trying to get her to meet me up. But unfortunately, there was like a thunderstorm. It was raining really bad that day, I think, when we were trying to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was not a good day
no, but it would have been a nice event.
to.
There's so many others we can go to.
Yes, and opportunities. And then I'll be down there, so it'll
Yeah.
actually be really nice. Well, amazing. I'm just going to kick it off. I know that a couple of you are already on. So very excited to launch this webinar around building blocks of talent acquisition. And I'm even more excited to do it with someone that I consider a friend I've worked with very closely, Sophia KK. And please let me know if I mispronounced your name, Sophia. But our webinar today is really going to be around EVP, market insights, and how do you win the talent market. Sophia, as I mentioned, is someone I worked with, and I would love to just kick it off and have her introduce herself in her current role at the Center for Family Support and also her current role as a Chief People and Culture Officer. So, Sophia, I will let you start us off.
Yeah, there's a story behind the title as well, right? So hang on,
Yes,
let me get
there
to
is.
that.
I'll let you tell it.
So I'm Sophia Okike. I've been in the HR space for about 15, 16 years. Started off working in a couple of for-profit financial organizations and then moved into non-profit about 12 years ago. Done kind of every job, assistant, generalist, HR business partner, director, chief people officer, and before that, deputy. And I currently work for CFS, the Centre for Family Support. And CFS is a really inspiring organisation. We work with families and individuals that have intellectual development disabilities. We're based in New York and New Jersey. We have a staff of about 1,500.
Hmm.
75% of those staff are direct support professionals, and they actually work on the ground with the individuals we serve. And I think about 80% of those are women. So we're really
Hmm.
a mission-driven organization. So my role in that is to work with the executive leadership team and to, build HR strategy, really focus on the people. How do we hire the right people into the right roles? How do we keep them? How do we support their wellness and enable them to thrive? And I manage a HR team. So that's training, um, attraction and engagement, HR, and innovation and advocacy as well.
Amazing. And also, so just to give you a brief background on Sophia and I's relationship, I am the vice president of recruitment of healthcare at Level Up. I started our healthcare practice here, and I met Sophia working together at a previous client. And when I met Sophia, I said to her, I think you would have a phenomenal role as a chief people and culture officer. And at the time, she looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm so proud to see her in that current space now. And also to be involved with an organization that I know how passionate she is about. So I actually wanted to dive into that, Sophia, because I think what's unique about your background is that you've had different experiences in sectors from the nonprofit space to the private sector space. So I'm curious if there's any differences that you think between building an employer brand in the nonprofit space versus like a private sector space.
Yeah, that's a great question. And whatever you're in, you're working with people, right? And people, they're essentially there's some things about people that are inherently the same. They want to go to a job that they love or they thrive. They want to have career opportunities to develop professionally. They want to really make an impact. But I would say, from my experience working in the nonprofit sector, you're really working in mission-driven organizations where the people that work there usually have some kind of heart connection to the mission and they feel like they really want to belong and make an impact. And you can't replicate that. You can't replicate that desire to serve and have that heart of service and that lived experience you might have had. You can't replicate that kind of quality and bring it to the workplace. And I see that a lot in the nonprofit space. People are just so mission driven. Um,
Mm,
they will do anything for the job. It's not just about dollars and cents.
mm,
There's a heart connection there that, cannot be replicated. And when you think about creating an employee value proposition, you really have to take that in mind. You really have to understand that for those staff, and for most of our staff, they want to make an impact. They want to feel like they belong. They want to see their work grow and thrive. And, they can be sometimes prone to burnout. So you really want to support
mm.
them in their wellness, and really like care for them in some ways, especially when you're developing culture. So, in the for-profit sector, in finance, for example, it really is sometimes about the bottom line and the numbers. And, that's also important in the non-profit space, but the heart connection is not always going to be exactly the same. So, you want to keep that in mind when you're building a value proposition.
I really love that. And I think too, as you know, I can relate coming from recruiting for finance or technology and other industries compared to like healthcare and the nonprofit sector, speaking to candidates and hearing like their why of why they're looking to join an organization, or sometimes they're willing to value other things over being part of a company that has like a mission. And I think it attracts people like yourself that are also passionate about being part of a company that has a really strong mission that you can get behind. With talking about that, like, how do you think Center for Family Support mission influences how you think and shape your current EVP, your employee
Yeah.
value position?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we support individuals with development disabilities to lead the life that they want, right? So we're there, we have direct support professionals that work in the residences, or they might do community hab programs or day hab programs or respite programs. So they're there because they really want to serve.
Mm,
A lot of the wages, a minimum wage or above minimum wage, but they're not there for the dollars and cents. They're there to make an impact on someone's life. And that's huge, right? You wake up in the morning,
mm,
it's not just about you. You want to actually make someone's life better. And because of that, you really have to, allow for that balance. You have to provide that flexible working option if, when you can. You really have to build relationship. Relationship is key, right? If you don't feel plugged into your supervisor and they don't connect with you on some kind of personal level, that's not going to work, right? Because they're connecting
yeah.
with the individuals on a personal level, right? So, there really is this sense, and I hate to be cheesy, of family. And when I interviewed for the role, that came out really strong. There was this strong sense of family in the organization. I think our longest tenured person has been here for 35 years. So
Wow.
that sense of I'm here to serve, and this is a relational job. This is a job about me creating an impact because I want to, you know, improve someone's life. So when you're creating an employee value proposition, you have to keep that in mind. You have to think about, career growth for that person because, where can this job take them in the future so they can have a better life? You have to think about,
Mm,
providing benefits that provide financial literacy because they're not making, lots
mhm.
and lots of money. And so sometimes it's really hard for them. Some of them have two jobs. So you want to provide a
Wow.
benefit plan that can have financial literacy, and then there's the other things, right? The trauma care that they provide. The job is hard. right? They're dealing with
Mm.
people that have really had traumatic experiences. So you want to make sure you provide that wellness piece, in the mental health space as well as the health space for them. So you want to take a holistic approach to, like, your employee value proposition and really think about the person.
Yeah. I think that's actually really relatable as well in the nonprofit sector. But for anyone listening here, just looking at, well, how can I shape my EVP to attract to retain and attract new employees? And from what I'm hearing you say, Sophia, it's really about holistically, not just financially, what are they making in this organization, but also what does growth look like for them from a career standpoint? Are there any tools that we can provide them to help improve their financial literacy, quality of life? I love that you mentioned the wellness piece as well. And I want you to share with everyone. You shared with me that there's a meditation or a mindfulness that you do in the company, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, I can't take credit for Mindful Mondays. I mean, I must tell you that our CEO is passionate about well-being, and that was one of the top of the list she gave me, and I was like, really, meditation? But she's right, because a lot of us come in and we're so burned out. Monday, you got so
Yep.
much to do. You might have had a busy weekend, so we created Mindful Mondays, where every Monday we have a 30-minute online session,
I
um,
love that.
and just be vulnerable in a space and just have some quiet time and really think about our week. We're all people, and
Hmm.
sometimes I think we can forget that. So, that was something that she had on her heart for a while, and I'm so glad that we're doing it and we're still publicizing it. And we have other wellness activities. We really have a lot of activities that, embrace the community we serve as well as people's families. So we have opportunities for, you know, day outings in the park, for example. We've got some fundraising
Mm.
activities coming up with bowling. So we really try to create those initiatives where we can integrate the community and the staff and also have mindful meditation and those quiet times as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, my team does also something as well every day, I think, except on Mondays. We have a 15-minute mindful meditation. And I think it's a good way as well of building a community within the organization and like providing those tools. So that's really great. Now, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to just shaping like your strategy, you spoke a little bit about that, how in your roles you've developed the EVP strategy and talent strategy. How do you use market data or talent intelligence to inform some of those decisions or influence your approaches to EVP? Because I know that that's something we've been asked before. So I'm curious, in your experience, how do you use
Yeah.
that?
That's such a great question. When I started in human resources, when I started doing international work, especially, I was really, really engaged in the market data for building salary structures, right? Because the
Hmm.
salary structure was what we used to get the staff in the door, especially, in some of the rural countries where I've worked. So I had a very good relationship with Birches, which is kind of an international salary banding organization. And I would look at, base salaries in different countries, plus the fringe, what are we offering in terms of the benefits? And that kind of would help drive decisions on what we could pay people, because I would look at the data, looking at non-profits like ours, similar mission, same
Hmm.
budget. And I used to just be so focused on that. It was always like, that's what I'm going to base everything on. And then COVID happened. And it was like, all of a sudden, the bottom line wasn't enough to get someone in the door, right? It wasn't just, okay, this is what you're in the 50th percentile, you're in the 75th percentile, this is
Wow,
what we
yeah.
pay you. It was really like, okay, we need to look at what supports we're offering them. Are we offering flexible working arrangements? What are we doing in terms of benefits? So I really started to look at utilization data in our benefits. And you can get this from your broker. You can look at what people are utilizing in their benefits. So sometimes you might have a benefit plan that you think is great, but it's underutilized. And you're
Wow, that's a
spending
great tip. Yeah.
so much money on these perks that you think people love, but they're not actually using it. And annually, we would look at the utilization, we would look at people's, what they were tapping into, what was working, what was not working. Are they actually using the health? mental health support? Is it that the support we provide is not accessible for all? We would also look at the biometric screening. How many people are actually leaning into that? And that would help us make decisions on where we're going to invest. Because sometimes you could be investing in the wrong places. I know a lot of people wanted more investments in terms of having the opportunity to take out loans against themselves and also the match in the retirement. So that
Hmm.
utilization data that you get from your benefits broker, also your retirement vendor is really important. Look at what people are leaning into, and that can help you make decisions for where you want to invest, to help serve the people in the next budget go round. So I would say utilization data for the benefits and, retirement and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think like even from what I'm just hearing you say, the overarching theme is listening to your employees. So as the market has changed, like you shared with COVID and during the pandemic, people valued different things outside of just salary. There were other things that started to matter. And I love what you said about just even seeing what are your current employees utilizing. Sometimes what you might think might benefit
Yeah.
someone might not really be what's at the heart of what they value. And having that data can then better inform you on where the best investment is so that you can work on retention for those employees.
Yeah, that's totally right. Listening to your employees is key. You got to go on your own shows. You got to go on
Yeah,
your own shows. You got to have your Zoom meetings, and you got to be available. You got to be available to listen to them because in your mind, this is what you think works.
right.
But my mind is how I was raised. It's how I think. It's very
Yeah.
unique to me, and I tend to hang around with the same executive team, so we all think alike. But by listening and going out, that will really inform you. And also the data, that will inform you make decisions. That will help a lot.
That is a great tip. What do you think are some of the effective ways like you've brought EVP to life, like whether with employees or even externally with candidates? Is there any strategies that you have that you've done with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll talk about with, internally, right? You can have all these initiatives, you can launch all of this, but if you're not actually living it or leaning into it yourself, then, it's like, oh, it's not gonna make an impact. So I would say,
Mhm.
working with the senior leadership, it's so key that the CEO and the senior leadership team and all the leadership team lean into the EVP. So if you're saying, we really promote having a good work-life balance or
Mhm.
wellness or meditation. You've got to turn up to meditation. You've got to take time off, and you can't always be answering emails at, 10, 11 o'clock at night or whatever it is. You really have to model the brand that you're promoting to your staff.
Hmm.
So if I'm saying I lean into building a learning culture, then I have to be present. I have to continually learn in my role, right? I have to, the leaders have to model the brand they're trying to build. And, in terms of when I'm retaining, like when I'm attracting new staff, I think
Yeah.
that interview process, you got to take your time doing it and you got to do it well. And I think we spoke about this several times
Yes.
about how, the whole recruitment thing is a two-way street and you have to do it well. You have to invest time in talking to people to find out if they're the right fit. You have to have them come in a couple times, depending on the role, right? Depending on
Yeah.
what the job is, you have to invest time to really get to know the people and, have them know you. And that's how you can live out the EVP, by really investing the time to listen to people, to get to know people, to interview them, and to hire the right people into the right roles.
I actually really love that you said, just to go off of your point, like you as a leadership team have to be involved and really lead from the front. I don't know where I heard this quote, but there's a quote like people don't watch just what you say, they watch what you do. And so it's important, like you said, to be involved in the EVP of the company because that's really what you're setting out to get other employees to be involved. And we've definitely spoken a lot about recruitment, just working together on certain pieces. And the candidate experience, I think, is one of the underrated things that employers think about. when looking to attract like new candidates. How can you make a candidate feel like they're already part of the organization from the first interview and really get
Yeah.
a sense of that culture? Because that stands out in this current competitive market when looking at talent.
Yeah, that's a great question. And as you said it, I thought, oh, I could tell you about my interview experience at CFS
Yeah.
because I had, you were there, several different, opportunities like I was going for.
Uh-huh.
This one stood out to me the most. You know why? Because there was this authenticity from
Mm,
the director of attraction and engagement all the way up to the CEO that I couldn't replicate. And I think, they were 100% honest with me and I felt aligned with the mission from the
mm.
first time, I looked into the organization. So I think, from the other perspective, you got to really listen to the candidates coming in. It's not just a kind of like rinse and repeat job. You really have to make them feel that they belong, that you're listening to them, you're interested in their experiences, that you see a future for them in the organization. So when they ask you, how has your career grown here? You can say, well, this is what, I've learned in the time I've worked at CFS, or this is,
Yeah.
let me give you a testimonial. I think testimonials are really strong of people that have worked here for 20 years and this is their story and this could be you. So I think, leaning into those testimonials and really listening to the staff that you are thinking about hiring and having that connection is key. It's all about building relationships and
Yeah.
having that connection.
Yeah, because something like finding a new position, it's a life-changing event. And it's also people that you're going to spend probably more time with than you do with your family on some
Yeah.
days. So, like you said, authenticity, that was something that attracted you. And I think as an employer, you also have to think about that from the candidate experience. Like, how can you make sure that you're aligned with that candidate through, I think what we keep saying is just listening and being able to really listen to the candidate perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Listening is so underrated. People think we've got to fill the
Yes.
time with talking all the time. Sometimes you don't, just sit in the corner over there and listen to what everyone's got to say. But it's tough to do that because sometimes there's silence and you feel like it has to be filled in. A lot of the times people
Yeah.
are thinking about what to say. And if we sit in the silence for long enough, it'll come out. So I think listening to definitely the organization and the people on the ground is key.
Well, Sophia, I think you've given a lot of great tips, and I just want to ask, so for, let's say, any teams on here or companies that are starting to evolve their employer brand, what do you think is a piece of advice or a tip that you wish you would have known when you started your career?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
That when you said that, you just flashed me back to IH and one of my former CEOs. She said about the listening actually. She goes, sometimes you go in and you're trying to build something and you come in with these blueprints.
Mm.
And you're like, okay, here's my blueprint. So no, don't do that. Just go there and do some listening. Go and like my advice is before you start, making your structure in your mind and doing your charts and all your blueprints, go and just absorb and listen and talk to some of the staff and ask them, why do you come to work every day? How does the
Mm.
place make you feel? What has been some of the key factors that have kept you here for 20, 30 years? And listen to them. And, when you listen to them, that right there is your employee value proposition because they will tell you, it's the mission or it's, I feel like I'm making an impact on someone's life. The camaraderie, the support, they're the
Mm.
kind of things when you hear that, they're the kind of things you want to build on. And of course you want to expound on them because there's so much else you can add on
Yeah.
that. But when you're building culture, don't go in trying to break everything down. Just find out, listen to the staff, listen to the leadership team, understand how they work and lean into what's existing. Um, and yeah, that's kind of my advice really.
Yeah, because also too, it's like there's a com if you're joining a company or becoming part of creating this, there's already a running machine essentially in the culture that's been built. So if anything, it's not about taking away, but how can you add through
Yeah.
listening and learning and really being that observer. I still have the book that you gave me on actually around listening and how can
Yeah, I love those
and
listening books.
yeah, no, I think
Yeah,
that's
no.
really the takeaway. Like, how can you listen more to what your employees are already telling you and seeing what the culture is already about that you chose to join?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is some shaping you're going to do. I mean, and that will be something you'll do with the leadership team. And
Yeah.
but you want to have buy-in from the staff. So, like, even when you're doing things and you have plans, you want to have that buy-in so they feel like they belong. And sometimes the best ideas come from those town hall meetings. You
Mm,
know, best ideas come from those team meetings or those trainings where you just, have that time of questions. So, just lean into the talent. I always say, it's mining what is it, mining the gold in the room? That's another one from my director of talent and attraction engagement. You really have to listen and mine the gold in the room because it's there already.
mm. Well, I love that. Now, I want to be mindful of time. I know we have a couple minutes left. So, Shanae, let me know if there's any questions that we have, anything that the audience would like to ask Sophia just around EVP or talent strategy, because I would love to ask her before we close off today. But yeah, I think some of the takeaways I'm already hearing from you, Sophia, is a lot on knowing kind of the audience of the company that you're joining, using market intelligence, using data to better inform your decisions, and that it's a collaboration. It's a collaboration between you and leadership, but also making sure that you're leaning into hearing what employees and candidates are sharing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I do think that's important. Collaborating with the staff and even the individuals we serve because we work with the families as well and they have so much experience, so much knowledge, like leaning into them as well when you're building that employee value proposition is key.
Amazing. Well, I don't think we have any questions, but Sophia, is there something I haven't asked you that you think would be important for the audience to know around EVP outside of the questions I already did?
No, I think you summed it up well. I would just say, stay authentic, be authentic to the organization and
Hmm.
definitely, lean on data to make those decisions, but get out there, talk to people, do your road shows
Yeah,
and know the staff population, really spend time with them. And when you're building a brand, you don't have to tear it all down. You just have to enhance it.
I love that. And building relationships, like you said, regardless of whatever sector you're in, it comes down to people and getting to know and build relationships with those people.
Definitely. Relationship building is very important.
Amazing. Well, Sophia, I want to thank you so much. I know this was like a little snippet of what we can go on and on to talk about, but I really appreciate your insights, your level of experience that I hope everyone here that was able to join. Thank you so much. We're able to take some takeaways from that. I would encourage, if you're not connected with Sophia on LinkedIn, that you connect with her, reach out. She's been so helpful in my own career. And I would say she's an amazing sponsor and connector in general. And if you are interested in exploring talent strategy in your own company, we actually have an assessment test at Level Up called TA Maturity Assessment. So I'll make sure we'll include that so you can take that assessment and see any strategies that you can work on. But
Yeah,
outside,
I love that assessment, by the way. I took it.
oh,
We
you
still
did?
have some work. Yeah, I did. I did do it. It's a great assessment. I'm going to share it with my team,
I love
because
that.
yeah, it's good. I mean, I'll say that in the nonprofit space, the introduction of, really leaning into data is new.
Hmm.
But it's key. And I think it's a great assessment to see where you're at to gauge what you need to do to, be more impactful. So thank you. That's great assessment. I just wanted to say. If you
Well,
haven't done
that's
it, do
great
it. If you're on the
feedback.
call, do it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time. Sophia, thank you. And I hope to do more of these together with you.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, bye. See you.
Bye.